Yeah, this is pretty exciting for us because we love puppies.
Well, Steve and I love puppies.
Well, that's true. I guess I'm more of a cat guy, but
Rob's a cat guy.
But that's fine.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
We'll let that pass. So.
No, we won't.
Does that mean I should scratch off the question? Where are all the therapy cats?
This is the AT Banter podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
My name is Rob Minot. Joining me today, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Howdy.
And Mr. Steve Barclay.
G'day.
And this is AT Banter. This is where we banter about what, Ryan?
Everything and anything related to assistive technology and the people who use it.
Wow, boom.
Ooh, there's a byline. Do we have that on a website somewhere? We should have that on a website somewhere.
I think that's our intro.
Darn.
That's right. Pretty close.
Yeah, good stuff. Look at that. How's everybody doing today?
Not too bad.
Yeah, not too badly either. Yeah, getting on.
You guys are boring.
Wow.
No.
Sorry, did you want something different? Oh, my foot! Oh!
That's right, we're that age. You just be complaining about everything. Well, I got up and my back was sore and... dear. Ryan, when are you going to eat these Timbits that I brought?
Probably at lunchtime.
That's not a good lunch, Ryan.
It's a fantastic lunch.
I don't think that is not...
It's fabulous.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
What the heck are we doing today?
Today we are talking with Tara Dougherty from PADS, the Pacific Assistance Dog Society.
Oh, very interesting. We're going to talk about puppies.
We are.
Yeah.
In our 3 years of doing this, I don't think we've ever once had a guide dog school or a therapy dog school or service, so it was about time.
Indeed.
Yeah, that is true. Is that what prompted you to get him on the show?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
well, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to hear. I'm curious to hear about the process because that's something that I've always kind of wondered about, not really knowing anything about guide dogs and how they're trained. Is that, what does that process look like? So,
well, these aren't guide dogs; these are service dogs.
Well, any sort of
Assistance dogs.
Service animals. Yeah. I'm gonna have to ask him about the service peacock.
Yep.
You betcha. Where would you even get a harness for one of those?
It'd be difficult. Or a service turkey.
Yeah.
Think of when I lived on the turkey farm. Just think of how many turkeys I could have saved by. That's my service turkey.
Giving them little pennies and walking them out.
Oh dear. Hey, before we get to that, you guys want to talk a little bit of relevant news?
Well, before we get to that, I had mail yesterday.
Oh, really?
In our physical mailbox delivered for the AT Banter boys.
What?
What?
Yes.
Really?
So I'm going to hand it over to Steve.
Oh my God.
And Steve can open it up.
What?
Well, wait. Should we clear the room first? Because wait a minute.
This is a fairly thick envelope here.
Yeah, there could be anthrax in that. You let me know if that's a white pad or I'm out of here.
So
you guys.
talk into the microphone so everybody can hear.
No, there's a return address on here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from Stump Kitchen.
That's right.
What? Really?
Yes, this has been posted to us from Edmonton.
Oh, wow.
Oh, now I gotta look. it's taped rather well, actually. It's going to be difficult to get into this. All right,
Interesting.
There we go.
Yeah, it was hard to keep my wife from opening it. She was curious.
What do we got?
We're all fans of Alexa's.
Should we call her down for the grand unveiling?
She's working for a call center, so she won't.
She's actually doing work.
That's right.
What do we got here? There's something wrapped inside there. There's a card in here with a lovely picture of Alexis Hilliard on it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's got custom cards, man. Her budget, man. We gotta talk to her. We gotta figure out what we're doing wrong.
Stump
She's got a
Kitchen
budget.
note from Alexis, and she's so cute. Oh my goodness.
Although no one wants a card with our faces on it. Let's be honest.
That's true. She can get away with it. Okay, here we go. It says, "Dear Ryan, Steve, and Rob, you guys are such good people. You really celebrate the underdog and believe in us up-and-comers. And it means so much to me that you saw something in Stump Kitchen at the very beginning and have continued to believe in me to today." And then it says, "Thanks for everything and keep up the great work, Alexis," with little hearts on it.
Aww. Well, thank you, Alexis.
And then there's a little gifty in here.
That's amazing.
Rob, you want to open the gifty?
Okay. Okay, it's let's see. It's wrapped in lovely. What is this? Leopard print. It's a leopard print bag. Oh my god! Hold on. Oh, look at that! Boom! We have Stump Kitchen buttons, you guys.
Well, you know what? There's
3 of them.
There's also these. I just noticed there's more in the envelope here. These are, I think. Yeah, we've got Stump Kitchen stickers too.
And stickers. She's got stickers.
She's got stickers.
Alexis, call us. We need to talk. We need to figure out how you're.
On these, this is a reverse one here. This is one you can stick on glass.
Oh my god.
She's got swag, man.
She's also got patron supporters like me, so that's how she can do it.
Yeah, I guess you helped pay for this. No, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Alexis.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that's great. Yeah.
Hey, you guys want to talk some news?
Let's talk news.
Big news. Big news, which I'm sure I know for a fact that you guys know about this. But for those who don't, who have been following us through the Domino's drama.
The Supreme Court challenge to the ADA. Domino's asserting that, hey, you can't make us make our website accessible. That's like that ADA is all about physical stuff. It has nothing to do with the website. To which the judge said, incorrect.
That's right. The Supreme Court, of course, refused to hear Domino's appeal, which means the lower court ruling stands.
That's right.
So they will be making their online offerings accessible.
Not that it matters, because we're all going to boycott the buggers anyways. Jerks.
Yeah, I think Rob had a good point talking about this whole Domino's fiasco and how it's probably going to even open the door more now to litigation in the U.S. You know, there's been a lot in the past years, but there's even people on Twitter now that are saying, you know, go out and sue.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to, absolutely. And that's okay. I mean, that's what kind of needs to happen. That's what, you know, businesses now need to realize. Because what you have to remember, too, about this story is that, you know, this was Domino's taking the hit, but they had a lot of corporate backers. There was a lot of companies that were backing them that had their own interests in the results of this as well. So, you know, there are a lot of corporations out there that were you know, keeping a close eye on this, and, you know, they're going to have to respond the same way in the sense that they're going to have to make, you know, their own online services accessible, and that's going to be the long and the short of it, and that's going to be the positive thing going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, you know, they're all on Google now searching on how do I make my website accessible, you know.
But, you know, well, and here, that is the other problem. I mean, and it's something that I haven't really read anybody talking about, but to kind of side with the companies a little bit, if you're going to do this, the ADA needs to be changed. I mean, they need to put in place standards, guidelines, resources. And guidelines for the companies to follow. I mean, if you're going to tell them that they need to make their online
those standards already exist. You don't have to.
But they're not part of the ADA. That's what I mean. Like the ADA was sort of put in place. I mean, I guess they just need to amend that. They need to put in the standards right there. I mean, you're right. Web accessibility standards exist. Yeah. You know, absolutely. I mean, how many people have we had on talking about them? But without that being a part of the ADA, and I don't know how hard it is to go in and to amend any given act, but it seems ridiculous to me that they don't do that. That should be the first thing that they go do is, well, let's update the act to incorporate this new technology called the internet. You know, because the ADA was what, the 90s? Early 90s? I feel like the act itself needs to be amended, and there needs to be official standards and guidelines in place for these companies to follow. Because part of the problem with in them just going, okay, well, I guess we'll follow web accessibility standards, is that they could still get sued, because who's to say what the guidelines are? What's the standards? Who is dictating what makes something accessible and what makes something not accessible? Like, there has to be guidelines in there to follow, or a checklist for them to go, okay, check. But without any of that in there, you're just going to open the door for more litigation. Because what happens if somebody tries to connect to Domino's with a screen reader that, say, isn't as powerful as JAWS or NVDA or something, and aren't able to access, ordering the Supreme Court Supreme pizza? They're just going to get litigated again. So I can see how that
in that case,
would be frustrating.
If they actually were accessible, if they were WCAG compliant, they're testing
all the screen readers,
systems out there that will crawl your site and tell you what is and isn't accessible on your site.
Right.
There's a whole business model, Picello Group, that's now owned by Vispero. That's what they do. They do web testing and certify accessibility. The standards exist. Companies to help you do it exist. You can get certification from these companies that say, yes, your website is accessible. It doesn't need legislation. It needs the will to be done. And the courts have basically said, do it. So people need to do it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, but I guess my question is, is that what they're pointing to? Are the courts saying you need to go to the web accessibility guidelines and you need to check all these boxes? That's what you need to do. I guess that's my point. Like, I wish there was something in the actual legislation that would point companies to, there are the things that you need to do, as opposed to just saying, yeah, it needs to be accessible, because that's vague. And I could see that for companies, it would be frustrating to have to deal with. So I guess I want to live in that perfect world where
everything is spelled out for you in black and white.
That's right.
There you go. You and Trump.
That wasn't funny.
Yeah, that was fun.
But in any case, all that being said, this is incredibly good news. I was very relieved to see this. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous to me that this lawsuit even existed. It's ludicrous that Domino's took this to the Supreme Court.
I can't wait to see what's next. I really can't. The nice thing about Twitter is you see all these things, and you just think of all of them. Think of all the websites out there. There's going to be litigation everywhere, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, I don't know.
If I install the KFC app on my phone right now and I can't order a bucket of chicken, lawsuit. It would be that easy.
Well, no. Well, yes.
Well, yes, it would.
Yes, but it's also not easy to sue. It costs money, and it's a pain in the butt. You gotta
yes,
probably go fill out paperwork and stuff.
Got to get yourself a
really
lawyer.
It's only really worth it if you could go on Judge Judy and have it litigated, because I feel like then you're on TV and you get to meet Judge Judy, which would be cool. But
then again,
aside from that, suing somebody sounds like a real huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, but we know down in the U.S. that happens all the time, right?
I don't say all the time.
It happens a lot.
Well, Judge Judy does run. I think she's in her 27th year of. So I guess you're kind of right, but.
It happens a lot.
But no, honestly, that is the fear of litigation we keep hearing again and again. That's what gets companies' attention, and that's what usually drives sweeping changes. Companies aren't going to spend 30, 40 grand in making their website accessible if they don't have to.
No, but they'll spend 3, 4, 5 million in litigation.
Domino's will. But again, I'm wearing the tinfoil hat, so I know the fact that there's this shadow
deep state
version of pizza companies that were all behind Domino's going, okay, you go fight this and see how it turns out. And because we don't really want to make our website accessible either, but we don't want we don't want everybody to have to fight it. So you just go and be our test case.
Well, and it would, it'd be like, and you guys have a vague idea, but sit you down at my computer for a day, turn the screen off, take your mouse away, use the screen reader. You know how much shit you hear on the internet that's not accessible? Button, 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 clickable, clickable, button, 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 graphic, graphic, button, button. Like, it needs to change, and education hasn't done anything. So I sue them all. Screen readers can't do it all.
All right, listeners, everybody go get a lawyer.
That's right.
Start suing.
Absolutely.
But it will be interesting going forward.
Yeah.
And you're right. That needs to change.
Yeah.
Especially given that online services are so important these days. I mean, everybody has a website or an app now that they want you to use. So there's no reason that people with visual impairments should be shut out of anything. So
something to work towards, for sure.
Hey, Steve, why don't you tell the fine folks about Canadian Assistive Technology?
Well, Canadian Assistive Technology is a Canadian-based distributor of, guess what? Assistive technology.
I would not have guessed that.
Really? Oh, I got to work something better into the name then. And we do all kinds of low vision and blindness aids, as well as all kinds of physical access aids and accessible furniture. You name it. Visit our website at www.canastech.com.
Rick, let me ask you about this. Chaos Technical Services.
Chaos Technical Services.
Don't sound so excited about it. Woo! Speaking of repairs.
We are the sister company to Canastech. We do the repairs on low vision devices, reading machines, for libraries, braille printers, and pretty well anything in between. We can be found at www.chaostechnicalservices.com.
Joining us now is Tara Dougherty from the Pacific Assistance Dog Society.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Well, listen, we want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and chatting with us about pads. So why don't we start off real simple and just give us a little bit of background about pads and how long it's been around and what you guys do.
So PADS has been around for about 33 years now. We've been placing assistance dogs in a variety of different kind of capacities over that time. We've certainly grown and evolved over those years. So we actually place 4 types of dogs now. So we train service dogs for people that are physically disabled, hearing dogs for people that are deaf or hard of hearing, PTSD dogs for veterans and first responders, and accredited facility dogs that work with community care professionals. So those could be educators, people that work in a healthcare context, could also be justice facilities such as victim services or CMP, where the dogs work with victims of crime in kind of forensic interviews or courtroom settings. So those are our 4 kind of major categories of working dogs that are fully certified. And then we also have one other category, which I love. We have VIP dogs, and those are very important pets that are placed with children and adults with disabilities. So they don't have all the public access rights, but they're lovely, well-trained dogs that make a tremendous difference. So, but didn't quite make the grade as a working service dog.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting when I was going through the site. Is that, and something that I didn't really realize. I guess I suspected it intuitively, but I guess I just didn't realize that there were sort of really distinct categories of working dogs. In the sense that there's a like you said, there's a hearing dog and and something like a therapy dog or a PTSD dog, very different than say a guide dog, and I'm assuming that they have to be trained very differently.
They do. And a lot of times people assume that, when they see our puppies in training out in the world, that they're being trained as guide dogs because that's what people are most familiar with.
Right.
But it actually takes very different training and very different dogs, temperament-wise. With guide dogs, you're looking for a dog that is great at disobeying. So a dog that, sees danger and says, you told me to go that way and I'm going to say no. And with our service dogs, we want dogs that are going to respond and do what's asked the second they're asked. So it almost kind of takes very different personalities. And fortunately, we have lots of partnerships with our guide dog school. So, when we have litters of puppies and some fit kind of one temperament or the other, we're able to kind of connect those dots and support each other. So we do a lot of exchanges with other schools through our breeding program. So
now, given each category, are there specific breeds that fit really well in certain categories, or does it really depend on the dog's personality?
It's a little of both. So we train Labradors, Golden Retrievers, and then Lab Golden crosses. So they're a mixture of the two breeds. And a lot of times people just think a Golden Retriever is a long-haired Lab. They're very different breeds, actually. So our Golden Retrievers tend to be very what we call affiliative, where they like to, they're very connected to their people, which is lovely, but they also tend to be softer dogs in terms of not just their coat, but also their personality. So they're less resilient. They don't quite take everything in stride the way our Labs do. And then the Lab Golden Cross is kind of an attempt to kind of strike a balance between the wonderful traits of the Golden Retriever and the confidence of the Labradors. But what both breeds bring to the table are that very happy-go-lucky kind of personality. They love people. They love to please. They're very food motivated, which makes them much easier to train. So there's a lot of breeds that they're like, how are you going to make this worth my while? And Labs and Goldens don't tend to fall in that category.
And that goes back to why cats probably don't make good service animals.
Less food motivated, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking
there's really not enough in it for me to really...
In theory, my English Bulldog should make an excellent service animal.
In theory. We did have somebody call once and ask if we could train an English Bulldog to be their service dog. And I was just imagining the dog trying to launch itself to hit an elevator button or something like that. I mean, the visual was humorous, but the reality was probably not so pretty.
Yeah, the short answer to that is no.
Yes, no.
Having had a Bulldog for 4 years, I can tell you that they are virtually untrainable.
Excellent.
And is that actually an issue? Like, all joking aside, like are there certain breeds that are just no-goes in terms of either the temperament of the breed or just the physical limitations, say, of the breed?
That's a really interesting question. So it's another one of those yes and no answers. So with our service dogs, you couldn't ask, a Papillon to be a bracing dog and support somebody as they're trying to go up and down stairs. That just simply isn't practical. However, there's this misconception that service dogs can only be Labs, Golden Retrievers, or German Shepherds, that's kind of the three categories that they fall into, or the three breeds. And that's actually no longer the case. There's a lot of breeds, or even, mixed breed dogs that are successful as working dogs and can go through the certification process. So what makes our service dog a service dog is their training, their behavior, their ability to support someone. We once trained a Papillon. I just jokingly referred to how we couldn't use one as a bracing dog, but Jingle made a fantastic little hearing dog. And, I think he was all about 6 or 8 pounds, but, he kept his humans safe, and that was his job. So he was very, very good at it. He had the right temperament, the right disposition, was very eager, keen to work. So the breeds there isn't kind of a limit to, what dogs can be used, but there are limits to what dogs are practical for specific roles. So we wouldn't ever ask, obviously, a Papillon to be a service dog, but he made a fine hearing dog. And we've worked with a lot of breeds over the years. We've now kind of narrowed down onto the Labs and Golden Retrievers because they can meet the needs of most of our program areas most successfully. We went through a lot of different breeds trying to find small breed dogs for our hearing dog program, where there was one that was just super successful that we could kind of purpose breed. And our luck has kind of been hit and miss, and it really came down to the individual dogs. So we've had some individuals that have been hugely successful, but then breeds as a whole that have been overwhelmingly unsuccessful, even though we've had a few that have made it through. So we stick with the Labs and Goldens at this point because they work
Right.
and most of the time. So, and it allows us to kind of channel our resources.
It's interesting. I was reading an article just the other day about the guy that was responsible for creating the breed of Labradoodle.
Yeah.
And saying, him saying that, he kind of regrets that he ever
Releasing
did it.
the Frankenstein dog onto the world.
Yeah, I saw that headline too. And what's interesting is that started out as an attempt to make a hypoallergenic service dog.
That's right. Yeah.
Which, the most common objection we get to working dogs in a public space is, what if people have allergies?
Right.
And this goes back to your original question, there isn't really a hypoallergenic breed that has been successful in this kind of work. Poodles are extraordinarily intelligent dogs, but they're a little too smart. They think for themselves, and they don't tend to handle the public life in the same way. That's not to say the whole poodles can't do the work. There's some, and I know of a few personally that are extraordinary service dogs, but breed as a whole have not really been successful in those roles. And so his attempt in crossing the Lab and the poodle was to produce that hypoallergenic service dog. And yeah, I mean, he says he unleashed a monster, and I tend to agree. It seems like everybody is crossing everything with a poodle just so they can add oodle to the end of the name.
It's fun.
And we believe really strongly in purpose-bred dogs. We cross our Labs and Goldens for that reason, because we're trying to produce an extraordinary working dog type, and trying to get to that place. I mean, all dog breeds came out of purpose breeding dogs together to try and get something that was perfect for a specific role or type of work, right? That's where we got the breeds that we have. So, we're working at that. But we also, love our purebred Labs and our purebred Goldens, and, believe in responsible breeding and ethical breeding and all that kind of stuff. So.
Now, from your guys' experience, out of all the different categories, and this may be a loaded question, but of all the different categories of dogs that you train, what category tends to be sort of the most labor intensive in terms of training the dog for that particular task?
I would say some of our more specialized service dogs for people with physical disabilities. So not only is it labor intensive to train, like some of our dogs have 60 plus cues, like everything from turning lights on and off to helping with the laundry to getting things out of the fridge and, not helping themselves to the cold cuts, right? And, when you look at a dog like that, and then with some of them, we layer on an additional layer where we want them, for example, somebody who has a spinal cord injury that needs a dog for balance, so maybe they can walk, but they can't bend over and pick things up. That dog needs to have all those skills, but it also has to have enough drive to work and do all the skills, but be calm enough that they would never put pressure on the leash or knock that person off balance.
Right.
And so trying to find that beautiful threshold between a dog that can be 100% managed by voice alone without any kind of like physical pressure on the leash, but still has enough working drive to do all those skills, those dogs don't come along every day. And so it not only is a ton of training, but it's also finding kind of that magical unicorn of a dog that can do all of those things.
Can you give us kind of a look at what the process is from puppy on up to, where they get vetted and determined what they're best suited for? What does that look like?
Absolutely. So we have quite an established breeding program now. We partner with schools all around the world, actually. I was going to say North America. So we have a North American breeding cooperative of schools that trade puppies and litters and all that kind of stuff. But then we also partner with schools overseas and exchange puppies and that kind of thing. And so we breed our own dogs, and then they're born into the homes of our volunteer breeder caretakers. So we have volunteers that take on one of our breeding dogs and then care for her puppies for the first 8 weeks of life. Of course, they're supported through that whole process by our staff. We come out and deliver the puppies, and then we support them through the care and kind of the rearing of those puppies to 8 weeks old. At 8 weeks, they come in for assessment. And so we do an assessment on them. And this is not like a pass or fail, you're in the program or you're out. It's more to figure out who they are a little bit and get a sense of their personalities and what kind of home they might be most successful in. Then we use that information to match them with another group of volunteers. So we have puppy raisers that raise puppies for the first 18 months or so of life. And so the dogs live with them, go to restaurants and stores and work and all that kind of stuff with them. And so at that point, we hand those little 8-week-old bundles of joy over to those volunteer families, and they live kind of in a foster type environment with them. They come to puppy class every week. And at the end of that puppy raising period, or near the end of it, they go through another assessment, usually around 14 months old, that again helps us gather more information about who the dog is, whether they might be successful as an assistance dog, and if so, what kind of work they might be best suited to. So those assessments tell us a lot about who the dog is. We're not testing their obedience or their training or anything like that at that point. We're just looking at, who are they, what worries them, what gets them, kind of excited, and what, potential challenges might be there training-wise. So shortly after that, the dogs get, we call it turned in to advanced training. So they come in and they live at our facility. Here in Burnaby, we also have trainers in Calgary and on Vancouver Island, so that are on staff with pads that train all those special skills. So at that point, they spend another 6 to 9 months with our professional trainers learning all those special skills. So that period might be shorter or longer depending on what role they go to do. So I told you at the beginning about our accredited facility dogs. Those are extraordinary dogs, and they are rare gems that can kind of go into an environment where people are having their very worst day and kind of turn things around for them. But it's also a rare dog that can do that work day in, day out, just like the people, and not get stressed by taking on all that emotion. So we have to kind of handpick those dogs. It's very specific temperament that can do that kind of work. But their training period is shorter because they basically have to have very solid obedience, but no special skills. And so we can train them faster, but they're fewer and farther between because of the type of temperament that's required. So at that point, so once the dog passes all their tests in advanced training, they've learned all their special skills, then our trainers look at our wait list and go, okay, who would be the best match for this dog with their strengths, what they like to do? So if you have a dog who will, for example, retrieve items, but will do it a couple of times and then be like, hey, get it yourself. Like, come on. You don't want to place that dog with somebody that has dexterity problems that's going to be dropping things 30 times a day. You want to put the dog with that person that will retrieve like a machine, 100 times a day and come back for more. So we really pride ourselves on matching the right dog with the right person. And so at that point, the client gets to meet the dog, and we kind of determine if it's a good match, and then we move ahead with what we call team training. So team training is kind of an intensive crash course for the clients to learn how to handle the dog, and basically, kind of go through the owner's manual and learn how do you care for the dog, how do you keep up their training, because we're not building robots that will perform as, built. for life if they're not continually rewarded and finding the work enjoyable. So part of our goal with that is helping the clients to understand how to motivate their dogs, how to keep them happy, and how to watch them for signs of stress and just recognize their needs as well. So, and then all going well, after 45 days, they go through another test to kind of make sure that everything's kind of going well. And at that point, they become a certified team. And PADS follows up with all of our dogs annually. So we do an annual follow-up to make sure they're still working the way they were trained to do. And then also to help, if needed, add additional skills. Often, particularly our service dog clients, their mobility will decline over time. And so we might need to add some skills on for the dog and help kind of support that process. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, kind of not just getting the puppy ready, but then the follow-up once the dog is with the client.
So this is a really huge process. I mean,
it is for sure.
It's just isn't just a matter of giving a puppy some skills and then sending it out into the world. So that kind of spins into my next question, which was how many applicants do you guys generally get for dogs, and is it a real challenge for you guys to keep up with the demand?
It is for sure. It's our biggest challenge, to be quite honest. Our wait list, it feels like it will always exceed the demand of dogs that we have. We're going into our annual graduation this week with a record number of dogs. I'm not allowed to say the final number yet because there's a few that are still kind of finishing up and they haven't passed their test, but hopefully will before graduation. But
cram, guys, cram.
It's 20 plus dogs, and our previous record I think was 16. So,
wow.
But the numbers are up there this year, and we look at that, and that's a tremendous amount of work for our team and wouldn't be possible without our donors. But our wait list is still huge. We've changed up our process a little bit in the last few years, where people can submit what's called an expression of interest, which really helps us, because our old method, we would open our wait list and it would be closed a couple days later because it would fill up so quickly. And with this new process, it kind of is a bit of a pre-screening that helps people to kind of identify if they're even a candidate for our program, and then tell us a little bit about themselves, so that we, if we have a wait list of 20 people, but none of those people are a match for a dog that is coming through, we can then go to that expression list and look through kind of the submissions and pull people. It also indexes people as they kind of submit those expressions, so that we know when they first reached out to us. So we're excited about that process. It's meant that, there were some people that applied earlier this year that are graduating with dogs this weekend. So that thrills us that we're able to respond to some people's needs really quickly. But for some people that are looking for a more specialized dog, the wait is tough. It's 4 or 5 years, if not more. So, it's tough. It would be really nice to be able to, meet the needs within the community within kind of a 6-month time frame. Because when people are struggling with their independence and their mobility, being able to respond to those needs in a timely way would just be amazing. But it all comes down to dollars, unfortunately. So we do the best we can with what we've got, and we've got some fantastic supporters. So,
how many other schools are there in Canada doing the same thing?
I'm just going to totally guess here, but accredited schools, so schools that are certified by Assistance Dogs International or the International Guide Dog Federation, I would say there's probably about a dozen. Don't quote me on that number, but I think it's about a dozen. And then I don't even want to guess how many other kind of private trainers, unaccredited schools are out there, particularly with legislation having changed recently to allow people to go through an owner-trained or privately trained certification process. There's been a lot of new schools that have popped up that are for profit. So meaning that, they're private businesses that an individual can hire to train a dog for them.
Right.
A while back on the news, it seems to have fallen off the news lately, but a while back there were a lot of stories about people dragging their pets onto planes, bringing on their therapy peacocks.
That's right.
Has that falsifying of service animals impacted you guys at all?
It does for sure. The biggest challenge for us is we hugely support private certification because it allows more people to get dogs into their hands that need them. And any dog that is well trained that can pass that public access test deserves to be kind of helping that person, in our opinion. The challenge that we face, though, with that, because it used to be, we'd be out in public and people, before they even saw our vest, would say, "Oh, that's a PADS puppy," because though, whether it was PADS or BC Guide dogs, there was kind of that brand recognition of what dogs were legitimate and which dogs weren't. And the challenge that comes with private certifications, there's a lot of dogs out there that are not wearing PADS or BC Guide dog branding. And there's no issue with them the dogs being out there if they are certified. The challenge makes it very difficult for the public to discern what's legitimate and what isn't. Right. And fortunately, the BC government introduced really groundbreaking legislation that people all around the world kind of looked at and went, wow, this is fantastic. And it allows public access rights for the puppies and training, but it also has teeth behind it for people that are impersonating a service dog. So it allows, there's consequences to people that are falsely representing their dog as service dogs. And the other really important piece of it is they've provided government issued ID for all certified teams. So it looks kind of like a driver's license. So both the dogs and the handlers have like an identification card that they can show if they go into restaurants, etc. So that's helped a lot in helping people to identify which dogs kind of meet the grade and which ones don't. But it's still a challenge. I was out at the mall this weekend with a dog in training, and I came across 4 other dogs, and I can guarantee, just based on behavior, that at least 3 of them were not legitimate service dogs. They were just dogs that somebody had bought a vest online, and they want to be able to take Fluffy out with them. And
so annoying.
It's super frustrating because we've had dogs had a fake service dog come at them aggressively. I hear horror stories all the time from restaurants and stuff about people coming into a restaurant and getting their dog up on the seat next to them and ordering them a meal. And I'm just, it just downgrades the reputation of all working dogs when behavior like that is allowed. So
yeah, and that fight's been going on for years, ever since there's been service dogs. Trying to bring your guide dogs or service animal into a restaurant has always been a fight, and obviously that's not going to change anytime soon.
No.
Let me sort of take a similar question, but from a different angle. Because service and therapy animals have sort of been in the news more and more, and you hear about more and more people, whether they're legitimate or not, but like having service animals. Have you guys noticed an uptick in, say, applications based on sort of that increased visibility of the idea of service and therapy animals?
We have, and I think too, what's tough for us is we basically have 4 models of car, right? And the needs that these dogs meet, across all program areas of all schools are far greater than 4. There's probably 20 different kinds of service dogs.
Right.
There's dogs that detect seizures and dogs that can detect, like if you're diabetic, if you're having a high or a low, and alert you before it even happens so that you're not kind of in a dangerous state. So there's a lot of different kinds of service dogs that are out there. The possibilities really are endless in some ways. So we only meet kind of 4 areas of need. But we're fortunate to have partnerships we do get a lot of inquiries from people looking for emotional support animals,
Right.
which are not yet recognized under the law in the same way service dogs are. They're not in the legislation yet. So we don't want to diminish for a second that dogs are extremely powerful in helping people, deal with, whether it's mental illness or anxiety or whatever it is. But there's a lot of debate out there in the world about whether or not those dogs belong in a public setting or whether or not, having a dog as a pet should be sufficient. And that debate spans across, mental health, like medical practitioners, about whether or not, the dog is supporting the person, or the dog is kind of keeping the person in a position of disability as opposed to healing and growth.
Right.
And so it's a really interesting discussion. It's one that, we typically kind of just stay on the outskirts of, because it's not an area that we service, because the dogs wouldn't have public access even if we did train them. So, but we do certainly support, we've placed many of our VIP dogs with children and adults with anxiety, depression, et cetera. And those dogs make a phenomenal difference.
Right.
We're really proud of those placements and the impact that these dogs can have, just even in a pet capacity. So,
do you see a time when sort of, there might be sort of you guys who are a little bit more specialized with some of the higher level skills that are needed, and then there's maybe like sort of like just a general therapy animals that might more fit in where there's not specialized skills necessarily needed for that animal, but maybe just a good temperament? Do you see a time when maybe there will be like sort of a less specialized?
I think we're already there. We've got some fantastic organizations that work with therapy animals. So the distinction between therapy dog and assistance dog is simply that a therapy dog is someone's pet that has been kind of vetted by someone, an organization of some kind, that has put the dog through a temperament test, et cetera, to make sure that dog has the training and the temperament to be safe in that environment. So you look at BC Pets and Friends or St. John's Ambulance, both those organizations do phenomenal work with therapy dogs within senior centers, healthcare settings, et cetera, where the dogs go in and visit. And they do absolutely tremendous work. I think the challenge for us is that sometimes there's an assumption that those dogs and, for example, our accredited facility dogs are the same thing, and they're not. So, having a pet that's well-mannered and well-trained is very different than a purpose-bred dog that's gone through 2 years of professional training and been exposed to an astronomical number of environments, et cetera. And so we're quite committed to advocating for the use of accredited facility dogs, particularly in courtroom settings, where, one really, one dog could put back, years of work for dozens of dogs. So, you take a dog into a courtroom to support a witness, and that dog decides, to bark or, leave where it's been stationed with the witness, et cetera, and cause some sort of disturbance. The fact that we've been allowed into the courtroom at all is a huge privilege and a tremendous support to vulnerable witnesses. So there's some settings like that where we really firmly believe that it should be purpose-bred and trained dogs, right. Fully certified dogs that are in those settings. But it doesn't mean there isn't a place for both therapy dogs and accredited facility dogs. The therapy dogs that are out there in the community are doing absolutely tremendous work, and we want to see them continue to do that work. And the interesting thing is a lot of our dogs that don't quite make the grade as PADS dogs do go on to do that kind of work, and we support that where it makes sense and where the dogs will enjoy it and make a difference.
Well, okay. Well, let's just for giggles, let's talk about the notion of other therapy animals, aside from dogs.
Yeah.
Is it a ridiculous concept, or
No, not at all. There's a ton of research and history out there around other kinds of animals now being used in therapeutic settings. So BC Pets and Friends that I mentioned a few moments ago, they actually do have cats that go through their process and will go and visit in nursing homes and provide companionship and comfort to people that, are maybe missing their pet dog or their pet cat. That was a Freudian slip. There's a lot of programs out there that use horses in kind of therapeutic settings. So I know PRDA, which I'm just thinking what the acronym stands for, Pacific Riding for the Disabled Association. I think they're out in Langley, but they work with kids with disabilities and kind of get them on horseback and help. It helps them build core strength. It helps them build confidence. So there's tremendous work being done with animals in all sorts of ways. And I don't think, as an organization, we'd be pretty hypocritical to say the animals we have are the only ones that can make a difference. We quite the opposite. We do a specific type of work and we kind of stick to that kind of work. And we try to be kind of the best we can within the industry. But we also recognize that there's a lot of need out there for animals to do this sort of work in different contexts as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So using dogs in all sorts of different ways that helps improve kind of the human condition and the human experience. There's a lot of people dealing with a lot of things out there, and if a dog or a cat or a bird or a ferret or whatever it is that helps you, I don't necessarily know if all those things should be in a public setting for a multitude of reasons, but it doesn't diminish that they can have a tremendous impact.
Don't step on my seeing eye ferret.
Well, and it's a nature, like it sounds facetious or flippant, but I've got a young fellow in the community that I live in that finds great comfort in his pet rats and was asking about if there was a way he could get them certified to take them with him in public. Mm. And I'm going to say I have a very visceral reaction to rats, and I'm not going to judge him if those rats help him, but I don't want a rat in a restaurant with me. So
they do a lot of work to keep them out.
That's right.
Well, that's exactly it, right? So, but if those animals kind of bring you comfort, fill your boots. But I think that the piece around the public access piece of it is, dogs are very widely recognized as service animals.
Right.
There's other organizations in the States. I don't know of any in Canada, but there's organizations in the States that do work with miniature horses for guide animals. Yeah. Because instead of getting, an 8 to 10 year working lifespan, you get 20 plus years out of one animal. I still have a hard time envisioning somebody boarding a plane with a miniature horse.
Yeah, it's hard to get them under your seat.
But it does happen, right? And those animals are doing tremendous work, and just because I don't understand it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Right?
Well,
Yeah.
pigs are supposed to be very intelligent, so
That's right.
They are.
I could see like a seeing eye pig. I mean, is it? I mean, you laugh, but
Like
I mean,
a
really,
2,000-pound hog walking down the street.
is it really? I mean, if it works.
Well, and this is where the conversation gets really interesting. I can call it interesting. Is that there has to be levels of practicality as well.
Yeah.
And, there was an experiment that was done by a news reporter back east in the States a couple of years ago. It was floating around in the news, where she basically showed up to board aircraft with a multitude of different animals. And it was a social experiment to see how many different animals can I get onto a plane as my emotional support animal. And it was insane. Like, she had a peacock, she had a turkey. I'm pretty sure she actually had a miniature pig. And, it was, ferrets and rats and cats and dogs and all the things, right? And at some point, there has to be standards of training and behavior, and there has to be somebody who's willing to do that certification. So we're really proud of our accreditation through Assistance Dogs International. It's an extraordinary organization that believes in bettering the public reputation of working dogs and bettering access for the people who need them. And I actually believe that if, horses or pigs or whatever it was were more successful than dogs, we would see organizations like that showing up to bring standards to the industry. But so far that hasn't happened. And what that tells me is that the dogs are still the best choice for the work,
Right.
Kind of all the way around. And so, we're excited to be doing this work. But again, that sometimes people think that statement diminishes the impact that those other animals have. It doesn't. It's just saying that there's issues of public safety and public acceptance, et cetera, that have been very hard fought, that we don't want to see destroyed in the process.
Yeah.
So if anybody can just show up with a doctor's note and bring any animal into any restaurant or business, et cetera, it would be a free-for-all. And so that's something that, we advocate pretty strongly for kind of maintaining standards
Absolutely.
across the industry.
Yep. So, Ryan, we should do a social experiment. We're trying to get you, see if a cab will pick you up with a seeing eye horse.
Or a seeing eye penguin.
Yeah. Well, seeing eye penguin. That's funny.
Well, let's talk a little bit about funding. Where do you guys secure funding from?
We have a tremendous number of extraordinary donors. Everything from individuals or partnerships. We have a fantastic partnership with YVR. They sponsored one of our litters last year. TELUS has been tremendously generous with our program, kind of across all of our regions. Different foundations. Mr. Blake Foundation has sponsored a couple of our litters over the past few years. Our longtime benefactors are the John Hardy Mitchell Family Foundation. They, built our original training center, but they have just been absolute steady in supporting us over the years. So, we're very fortunate that way to have organizations that come alongside and believe in what we do. But I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the individuals. We have people that every single month make a donation to PADS, and that expression of many hands make light work holds true for the work that we do. And seeing people come together, and I'm in the process this week of putting together a graduation program, and some of these dogs have a dozen names after them. So whether it's volunteers, sponsors, supporters, etc. So really, we say it takes a village to raise a dog, and it really is. It might be cliche, but it's really true. And we're very grateful for the people that give their time and their dollars to help support our program. It costs about $35,000 to train a service dog and support it throughout its working career.
Wow.
So it's not a small feat. We're looking at over 2 years of training before the dog ever gets the leash handed over to an individual. And, that is really, tying back to what we were talking about accreditation wise and, public access, we take that responsibility really seriously, that we train world-class dogs that are going to be invisible when they go out in public. I mean, yes, they're adorable, but you're not going to know that they're curled up underneath, the restaurant table. When I'm out with my puppy and training, the best compliment I can be given is, oh my gosh, I didn't even know a dog was there when I get up to leave. And that's really the way it should be. And that comes down to the training and the funding of those supporters.
And how reliant are you guys on volunteers?
Hugely. So 98% volunteer driven. Wow. So we have over 700 volunteers in 4 different regions. And some of those volunteers are 24/7, 365 days a year, which is quite the volunteer commitment, I have to say. It's not like, showing up once a week and cuddling puppies. These individuals take dogs home with them. They take them to work. They take them to the movies, etc. And so it's a huge commitment, and we don't want to diminish how much work it is, but it's also an extraordinary community of people. I started as one of those volunteers with PADS, and 13 years later, I'm still here, and I would still be here even if I wasn't staff. I say I came for the dogs and I stayed for the people. I know. We're very reliant as an organization on it, but what has become really clear to me over the years in watching our volunteers and how they interact with us and each other is that we're also filling a very real need in, a community where people are struggling to connect and to find community. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that we have at PADS is just a lot of people that have found kind of a village of people that they can kind of call their own, and that kind of spans beyond just puppy training and cuddles, but also supporting each other just through life. Right. So we love our volunteers. They're I don't say this lightly. I think we've got some of the best volunteers out there, like just a tremendous group of people. So.
Well, listen, let's spin off right into a plug. Where can people find PADS online if they happen to want to donate or if they want to volunteer?
So our website is pads.ca, so short and sweet. There's information on the website about volunteering, about donating. That's all kind of in the main menu. And when we talk about volunteering, our main roles obviously are puppy raising and that kind of thing. But there's other ways that people can help us as well. We really encourage third-party fundraisers, all that kind of thing. So there's information on our website about how to get involved and find something that's a good fit for you, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be raising a puppy. So reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And certainly I will never discourage a donation. It's what helps us continue to do what we do.
Listen, before we let you go, was there anything that you wanted to hit on or talk about that we didn't hit on?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground, actually. That was fantastic. Good. And I really appreciate you guys reaching out to us. And actually, I'm just going to totally take that back now that that I said that is, if there are people that are interested in applying and interested in how a service dog can help them, there's information on our website about that as well. And, go through that expression of interest and see if we train the kind of dog that you need and how that dog can kind of help support your independence. So, they're the reason that we do what we do. So certainly that invitation is out to anybody who is interested.
Excellent.
We just need a dog that we can train to growl at Rob anytime he reaches for Chef Boyardee.
Well, how about I train a dog to just eat the Chef Boyardee for him? That'd be easier.
That might work.
That'd probably lead
Feed him to the punch.
Days, look, your dog's already trained for that.
That's right.
Oh dear. All right, she's already got that. Okay, so is it one of those codependent relationships where they just feed each other?
Well, clearly his cats aren't helping him.
Oh goodness. All right.
Oh dear. We appreciate you you joining us and giving us some insight into that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us. I really, really appreciate it. And any kind of public awareness helps us kind of do the work that we do. So this is just another way that people can support us, is just helping us get the word out there about what we do. So thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to help make that happen.
You bet. All right. Well, come back and talk to us again, and we'll talk to you soon.
For sure.
And
Thanks
good
so
luck
much.
with the big graduation this weekend.
Yeah, this Sunday, Michael J. Fox. So it's looking like it's going to be a very, very full house. But we're telling people at this point that, they can show up at the door and we will do our best to get them in. But it's with a record number of grads. We've also got, looks like a record number of guests. So it should be a very fun day. It is open to the general public, but we're kind of nearing capacity. So it's hit or miss at this point, whether or not we can get you in the door, unfortunately.
Man. Now there's an after-grad party I want to go to.
Well, and you know what? The party itself, the theater has limitations, but the party itself afterwards, if you just want to be like swarmed with puppies in a cafeteria of, refreshments, come on out around 3:00 on Sunday and you'll get to see a whole bunch of our puppies. Nice. So yeah, it's a good time.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again and take care, and we'll talk again.
All.
Great, thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Actually, that's a pretty good sell. Actually, I feel like a lot of people would sign up for that. I was like, wait, I get to be swarmed by puppies and
I was going to say, if we threw you in a ball pit, except it was a puppy pit, you'd become a puppy lover.
No, I wouldn't.
Sure you would.
No, I wouldn't. They would just pee on me and stuff. Ugh.
Little fluff balls all over you.
No.
Cuddling, licking you, kissing you.
I mean, dogs are fine. Look, it's not I have an issue with dogs. It's
yeah,
just
it kind of sounds like you do.
I don't. But they're just, let's face it, they're kind of dumb. No, okay, I won't get controversial.
Can your cat press an elevator button? No.
Not yet.
Because it doesn't want to.
Because it's a cat.
Does what it wants.
That's right.
No, that's interesting. $35,000 to raise a service animal. That's a lot of dough.
Yep.
And you listen to the process. That it's no wonder there are huge waiting lists.
Yeah. Well, guide dogs are even more, right?
Yeah.
Like
Are
guide
they?
dogs for the blind are even more than that.
Yeah, I think they're up around 60, 70, maybe more.
Yeah. I heard 100,000 from somebody once. I don't know if that's true or not. But I mean, yeah, it's an expensive process. It's very labor intensive, and
when you think about, you got the food and you got the vet bills and all that's got to get paid for, right? And that's all part of the training, the raising.
But and maybe this is something that maybe we should have talked to her a little bit about, but because I don't know if you guys will be any help, but it seems ridiculous to me that there's no funding for service animals in terms of, because they fulfill such a huge need.
I don't know. Maybe there is a component to it that's government funded. I don't know. She didn't mention it, but
yeah. So. I mean, if there isn't, then there certainly should be, because they're certainly as valuable as any piece of AT or any sort of other mobility aid. I mean, out of all mobility aids, they're probably the most valuable.
Yep.
When are you going to get a service animal, Ryan?
I had one.
Well, when are you going to get another one?
Don't need one.
He's got a service Rob and a service Steve.
That's right, and a service wife. And
Sorry, your dog wouldn't get you Timbits.
No, he'd eat the Timbits.
Well, you're assuming that I didn't.
Oh, well.
I don't know. She was a little bit more open to the idea of other service animals than I expected.
Yeah, I think, we didn't really get into it a whole lot, but determining, other than maybe an animal's behavior, what is a certified service animal? How can you tell? Somebody's walking into a restaurant with a peacock or, a dog with a vest they bought from Amazon. Like, how can you tell other than, their behavior? It's like guide dogs, right? All that certification can be faked.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to education, right? Like in terms of the general public, I don't think that they see a vest on any sort of an animal at the mall, and you just assume that's
right.
And I mean, even I, like, if for as much as I know now, if I go to the mall today and I see a dog in a yellow vest walking with somebody through the mall, I'm going to go, okay, that's a service dog in training. Yeah. I'm not going to question it, no matter what it's doing. So, I think, but I think that it sounds like they're moving in the right direction in terms of, issuing, credentials to the trainers, and I'm sure that, all the service animals will have some sort of paperwork that it might just get to the point where restaurants will be within their rights to ask for a service animal's
ID,
paper, to make sure that they are actually accredited. So, that's where that might actually have to get to, so that you don't have all these posers just wanting to bring I don't understand. Like, leave your dog at home. Like, you can't go to the restaurant without your dog for half an hour. Like, what's wrong with you? This is where dog people are weird.
Some of them are
weirdos.
Yeah, some of them are.
Anyways, except for our listeners, of course. If there's any dog lovers out there, that we love you, but. We love you.
But if you're listening to this show with your bulldog sitting on a chair in a restaurant eating foie gras, we're not happy with you.
That's right. Shame on you. Hey, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
They can find us at atbanter.com.
They can also drop us an email if they so desire at cowbell@atbanter.com.
And they can find us on the social medias. We's on the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Instagrams, there was another one in there somewhere, wasn't there?
There's never been another one.
No, there's always there's another one.
I know.
Oh yeah, we're on that one too. Isn't there? You sure?
This hasn't been developed yet.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
You know what? There's a social media that's up and coming right now, and I'm just holding its place.
Yep. That's right. No, it's because Google Plus. It used to be, we used to have 4. We just got trained by it, and then Google Plus folded, and
we are on LinkedIn, so there's 4.
There it is, LinkedIn. Yeah, see,
right,
I knew I was missing one. There you go, LinkedIn.
Go find us on LinkedIn. What else? Yeah, that's it. That is it.
You think I'd remember that too, given that LinkedIn's the only one I'm actually on anymore.
That's right. How is that going for you anyways? Do you feel mentally healthier now that you've given up all other social media?
Oh God, yeah. Particularly now. Can you imagine me on social media now with all this Trump stuff going on right now?
Yeah,
I'd be losing my mind. I'd be trolling Trump supporter. It'd be awful. Do
you find your hands get like itchy sometimes, and you're just like, ooh?
You know what? Something that's starting to become a pet peeve for me now is you see all these shows that are saying, "Come and join the conversation on Twitter."
Yeah.
You have to be on social media if you want to engage in these conversations now.
Yeah,
and that annoys me because they should have some platform. If it's CNN, they should have a CNN platform where anybody can go in without having to give up their personal information to a massive, giant data core,
right?
Yep.
And still be able to participate.
Well, it killed the days. I mean, remember the days where every website would have like a forum or a message board or something for people to participate, and it varied from organization to organization. Those are just gone now because everybody just uses the big social media platforms. So it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah. Want to talk to us? Drink this poison.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I have to admit that when you first announced you're doing it, I gave you about a week.
Well, strangely, that's about what I gave me too. Yeah. And it's funny because even now I sometimes find myself sitting down at the computer, opening up a browser and typing www.facebook.com. It became so automatic over so many years that it was just this habit that I had, and it's starting to go away now. But it was recently as last week I did it, and it's like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I typing this in?
What drives me crazy about it is just that I found that my attention span has just completely gone.
Yeah.
I'll sit down and watch a show, and for me to get through like a 45-minute, say, Netflix show, as soon as there's a lull, the second there's a lull, I'll open the phone, and check stuff, and then I'll be like, I try to come back into the show, and I have trouble getting back into it, and so it's really annoying. I'm trying to get better about that. If I'm sitting down to watch something, I'll just I'm putting the phone in the other room. I don't want anything to do with it. If there's a lull, I'm just going to deal with it. Like, I used to be able to ride the elevator up to my apartment without checking my phone, but now it's just like any sort of lull in activity, and it's like, we got to check the phone. So it's nuts. We're just training ourselves to like need some sort of stimulus like every second of every day.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'm telling you, I said it last week. Let's give apes a chance.
Indeed.
I welcome our ape overlords. Anyways, all right, that is going to about do it for us this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening in, and we will see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com, or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840, or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.